Welcome to Let's Go Outside, a podcast bringing moms together to chat about the raw, unfiltered reality of doing the exploring we love after having kids. No matter your comfort level of adventuring with the little ones, this is a space to have honest conversations about the real struggles of getting out the door with the kiddos. I'm Danika, a mama living in a small mountain town who's totally obsessed with healthy food and taking my kids outside every single day. I professionally guided backpacking trips in the Canadian Rockies, and I'm certified as a Leave No Trace instructor. On the show, you'll hear real experiences from other moms, plus tips on gear, trail snacks, and the best practices in the wilderness. Whether it's hiking, camping, backpacking, skiing, or traveling the world you want to do more of, this is your place to learn, find encouragement, and strip away any comparison. Come embrace both motherhood and the outdoors. Stick around. This is your place. Welcome to the Outdoor Mom Club. Welcome, Holly. I am so excited to have you on the Let's Go Outside podcast today. Could we start off by hearing about yourself, where you at in the world, who's in your family, and how did you get into getting into the outdoors?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Holly Burgess. I am 38 years old. I live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I have 3 daughters. They are 10, 7, and 4. I've always really liked the outdoors. I grew up with mom and dad who took us up to the lake every summer. And so we were always doing boating and little hiking things and stuff like that. I moved out to Canmore, which is a little town right by Banff, Alberta, when I was 17. Started actually doing hiking and rock climbing and lots of mountain stuff. And so I always really liked it. But as most people do, I went through a bit of a party phase when I was in my early 20s and kind of lost that outdoorsman kind of thing. And then when I was 27, I had Abby, who's my oldest. She's 10. And I really just found that it was just something that I could do, that I could do well. And I went and took her out on little hikes, and I could carry her. And it was just, I found that she was calmer and I was calmer. And it was really one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, like I could find a place here, and I could find some solace here. I was the first person in my friend group to have kids. And so I found myself very isolated from my whole group of friends. And then when I started doing the outdoors stuff and going back into hiking, and I started Burgess Adventures, I really found that I was able to build a community of women who were really going through the same thing. But then additionally, I was able to get like tips and tricks and gain confidence because there were other people that were doing it. I wasn't just out here being crazy trying to hike with my kids. It was actually something that lots of people were doing.
Yeah.
It was just that's kind of how I got back into it. And that's how Burgess Adventures started, because I was like, oh, it'd be fun to kind of document, what I'm doing, because there's other people doing it too. And maybe I could help somebody.
That's so fun. I love that you got back into it with your kids, because I feel like that is kind of the opposite for a lot of people. And so that's just like such a beautiful testimony and a beautiful point of just like, yeah, this is important to you, and finding peace there. Yeah. How has the relationship with the outdoors changed since being a mom? I know you touched on that, but is there anything else you'd add to that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that you just have to become a lot more comfortable with failure when you're going in the outdoors with your kids, because sometimes it's going to be a huge hit and everybody's going to love it and everybody's going to have the best day ever. And then sometimes you're going to spend 30 minutes getting ready to go outside and kids are freaking out immediately, so you're only out for 10 minutes, and it took you longer to get out the door than you actually ended up spending outdoors.
Yeah.
And just knowing that that's okay, I think, was something I had to learn, because I remember the first couple that were just total misses. I felt so bad, and I was like, why am I even going to bother doing this? And you kind of get discouraged, but keeping yourself kind of just, it's normal for things not to go perfectly. And it's okay to have a miss, and, misadventures are part of the fun for me now. Like my kids are older, so we have less of those now, but I always found them kind of funny when you get, especially in the winter here in Saskatchewan, it gets minus 100. Like it's so cold. And so you spend all this time getting layers and mittens and socks and long underwear and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you go outside and the baby poops their pants and you're like, okay, well, guess we'll go undo all of that and redo it all. And that's okay. Like that, just getting comfortable with that failure is definitely how it's changed. You're not just going out by yourself. We always laughed. Like when we used to go hiking, there's a couple of girls that I go with now, and all of us have kids now. And they're like, remember when we used to be younger and we used to just like grab our shoes and head out, like not a care in the world? And it's just not like that when you have kids. You gotta, there's a few more steps.
Yeah. And I think still though, it's not necessarily that you need to have it all figured out before you do it, but it's just going to take longer to get out the door, and then we're going to go figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. Like it is not going to be like you putting on a pair of shoes and caution to the wind. Like it is like that sometimes, but that's okay. And that was a big one for me to learn, was that like, hey, it's okay if it doesn't go exactly according to plan, or if you have to change the plan, or, you know, you do something different that day, or you end up just going home and calling it a day or whatever. Like those things will happen a lot more often when you have kids. Less as they get older, because they're more adaptable, and so are you, and you kind of learn what works and learn what doesn't. But when I first had kids, we failed a lot.
Oh, totally. And tell us about Saskatchewan. It's not commonly on the top of our minds as a tourist destination, but your videos make it look incredible. And so I want to know about your must-see places and just how it is overall and how the community is.
You know, it's one of those places that you have to kind of see to believe. It's got so much charm, and it's got so much adventure and so many things that you can go and do that I don't think people realize. Like, there's no mountains and there's no coastline. And so I think people immediately just gravitate towards places where there's these big extravagant things, but not having that is never the issue in Saskatchewan. Like, our nickname out here is the land of the living skies, and it's on our license plates. Like, that's our tagline for the province, and it really is the land of the living skies. I've seen northern lights and sunsets and rainstorms and thunderstorms and winter storms, and just it's pretty incredible. And obviously, like everybody, I think everybody just loves summer better. I think that's just easy to say, but winter has its own charm too. We get hoarfrost, where the whole city turns crystals for days on end, and we have a river in Saskatoon that runs through the whole city, and bridges and castles and all sorts of stuff. Like it's a really, really incredible place to live. Yeah, it's just one of those places that you're really proud to be from, and it is so beautiful. I think my favorite area, it's hard to say, because my all-time favorite place is northern Saskatchewan, and that's always been where I've spent my summers, and that's always been where I've had most of my adventures. We're all up in Waskesiu, which is Prince Albert National Park. However, during COVID, when we weren't allowed to travel outside of the province, you had to actually have a BC license plate to camp in BC for a year, and you weren't really supposed to go to Alberta and things like that. And so it was really during 2020 that I started going and saying, like, okay, well, there's got to be more than just Waskesiu, because it's fun to go there and we love it there, but there has to be more. And so really started going and visiting provincial parks in the south and in the east and in the west, and we checked out new places in the north and really started to see like the diversity that we have. It's pretty incredible. We have some of the only sand dunes in the world that you can see from space. In Saskatchewan, and two of the 8 in the world. I think I could be wrong about that number, but 2 of them are located here. And that was pretty cool to see. So I went and checked that out during COVID, and there's cactuses growing out there that make you feel like you're in Arizona. Yeah, paired with the same flora and fauna that we get in Saskatchewan, but a little desert thrown in. And it's just it's a really, really neat place to live. So if I had to pick, it would be northern Saskatchewan, just because it is so beautiful. I don't think a lot of people realize that when you get up past Saskatoon and past Prince Albert, you start approaching the Canadian Shield. And so it does get kind of not mountainous. There's no mountains, but there is very mountainous rock and waterfalls and rivers and things that you like, days long backcountry adventures where you paddle your way through whitewater rapids. And there is a lot of stuff I think that people don't realize that is here.
That's cool. It sounds like a hidden gem.
It is, actually. I like to think so anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like you just have to keep your eyes open for that beauty and just have that mindset of, there is so much here. We just have to be willing to go look for it. Or,
yeah, like you got to make it a road trip stop. You got to come and want to check it out. It's easy to go to BC, and it's easy to gravitate to Banff and to obviously the Rockies and things like that. It's not quite as easy to convince people to come to Saskatchewan, but in that breath, it's never crowded either. So You go up to a lake and you're paddleboarding sometimes in the middle of a lake that's bright teal like you would find in Banff, but there's nobody around. And I think that kind of adds to the magic a little bit because you can find those really unique spots where there's not 700 people waiting to take a picture.
Yeah. And are those lakes really cold or are they warm enough to swim?
Well, it depends. Anybody who's not from here is going to tell you that they're unbearably cold.
Okay.
But for all of us, Saskatchewanians that are from here, that's what we've got. So you swim in it. It gets really hot in the summer too. So for as cold as we get in the winter, we get just as hot in the summer.
Yeah. Crazy landscape. I have it on my bucket list.
It should be on everyone's bucket list. It's a really cool place to be.
So cool. I have seen some of your road trip reels and they are so incredible. And I just think that you are so good at finding cool spots to stop. And so I'd love to talk more about that.
So I think the first couple of times that I ever went on like really long road trips, I was like, oh my God, with kids, we got to stop. We have to stop somewhere. And I'd prefer not to stop at like a trucking rest stop, which are fine. But if we're going to stop, I'd prefer to stop and see something cool or do something cool or get out and stretch your legs instead of in a parking lot on a trail or something like that. And so the first couple of times we went on big, long cross-country road trips with Abby, I was noticing little rest stops and things like that just looked really neat. And so I started making notes. I had a little notebook.
Okay.
And so I would make little notes on, hey, this place, look this up, or Google this place or something like that. And so I started doing that and then there was a summer where we went and I had already had all these places written down. And so we went and we stopped at some of them and I was like, man, this was a huge success. And it was so much more fun than stopping at like, if we didn't need gas, it's so much more fun than stopping at a co-op or a Walmart or something like that. So that's kind of how I got started with like the road trip stop idea. And I mean, a lot of times we have a couple places that we love to stop. So we live in Saskatoon and we have to go like Saskatoon to Calgary to get to the mountains. And so we always stop in Hannah. And that's just what we've found works. Like that's always a good place to stop. And so for those sorts of places, I'll make sure that there's a playground. Like, is there an elementary school? If there's an elementary school, there's a park. So just looking into stuff like that. And now when I go, I make sure that I just Google I'll go onto a map on Google and I'll just look at where we are at and I'll see if there's any like little hiking men on the little Google map or something. And then I'll just kind of plan that way. Or I'll see it one year and I'll say, hey, I want to stop. Like we stopped at this place this year on our way to Tofino. That was probably one of the coolest places I've ever seen. It's just like a highway stop. You can go, there's bathrooms and Wi-Fi. But if you walk like 2 minutes past where the bathrooms and Wi-Fi are, it's this like teal paradise oasis with rope swings and unbelievable place to stop. And we found that because I just saw it one year and I was like, oh, that'd be a neat place to stop. Like looks pretty cool. Instagram is a great place for that. Like if I see it on a sign, like, oh, I want to stop there, I'll go Instagram the location and just kind of look and see if there's anybody who's tagged it. A lot of times little places like that aren't tagged too heavily because people don't want them to be shown too much. I also use this platform they have books, actually like hard soft cover books, and I believe they're called Backcountry Map Books. And that's an amazing company. They have an Instagram page. They have physical books that you can use, but then they also have an app. And so when you go into the app, you can kind of look at what you want and type it in, and then it will show you just those. And it has little descriptions and how to get theirs and things like that. And I love that platform. For finding places to stop, and you can pick what season you're into. So if you're on a road trip in the summer, you can look up summer things. If you're going somewhere in the winter, you can find snowmobiling or snowshoeing or ice fishing or different things for different seasons. And that's an amazing platform for finding like random things. And they always have the most random things in there.
That's so cool.
I really like them a lot.
So that is like a filter on an app, but they also have paper maps.
Yeah, so you can actually buy their books and they have them in different, like if I'm going to the Kootenays, you can look up like Backcountry Map Books Kootenays and it'll show you everything in the Kootenays and everything's got a little, like there's a key on the side of the page for what you're looking for, and then it's got different colors for what you're looking at. They're unbelievable. I think I own 6 of the books and I pay for the like extended version of the app and I use it quite often if we're on a road trip somewhere, because you can look up a highway and then you get the little icons for what's on that highway or what have you, and that's pretty good.
That's incredible. Is that only a Canadian thing? do you think?
I feel like it is a Canadian thing, and I think it is only Canadian, but I do remember like years back they were talking about having some of them extended into the USA. I'm not sure if any of that ever came to fruition or if any of that ever worked. For the US, All Trails is always a really good one to use if you're looking for like hikes and things like that. Because you can kind of pick and choose what length you want. So if you're on a highway and you want a quick like 15-minute jaunt just to stretch your legs or something, you can always find stuff like that on All Trails. But I just find that certainly for Canada, those backcountry map books are the best.
I love that. That's so good. I think I've literally been to that same rest stop as you on the way to Tofino, but I think we just by accident stopped there. And I was like, this is crazy. What? Yeah. It was busy. It was very busy.
Yeah, but for sure. It was busy while we were there too, but not unbearably busy or anything like that because the water there was absolutely freezing cold. So if you were willing to brave it, then you were going to have a great afternoon. But a lot of people would put their toe in and they were like, absolutely not. So
there is another spot on the way to Tofino, and I was wondering if your reel was made there, where it's like right before you head down the big hill to Tofino, there's like a stop there with like almost 2 lakes. Is that the same place that I'm thinking of? Because I've stopped there too, if that is.
With all the little cliffs and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've stopped there a few times. That's such a nice stop. Like honestly, that highway, there isn't a bad place you can stop on that highway. You could stop anywhere and enjoy a good view.
And there was a spring on that highway too. I remember you can just fill up your water bottles. It's awesome. That's such a fun road trip.
Yeah, it is. I love a good road trip for sure.
Awesome. And what did you mean before by there's a little hiking man on the Google map? I don't know that I know that.
Oh, so if you go on to like Google Maps and you type in Saskatoon to Tofino.
Okay.
And then it comes up, it'll show you like Saskatoon, Tofino, your little map that you get. If you go into more, into the Google icons at the top, you can click more, and then you can actually type in what you're looking for. So it'll be like along this route, campgrounds, or along this route, hiking trails, or along this route, gas stations or whatever. But I just type in hiking trails.
You just changed my life.
Yeah, it's a little like hiking icon will show up anytime there's a registered trail that's on Google, which a lot of times they are registered on Google.
Okay. That's amazing.
Find lots of campgrounds like that too, because BC has become absolutely crazy. Alberta too, Saskatchewan too, to some extent, has become just crazy with booking. So you got to be like on the ball 7 a.m. to get a spot, and it's fast as fingers, and a lot of times it just doesn't work. But there are a ton of private campgrounds that are not registered with the provincial or national or regional parks. And those are great places to support as well, because it's usually just people who are trying a career out, or they want to have a campground because they themselves love camping or something like that. So I found lots of really good campgrounds, privately owned campgrounds that way, just typing in that more and then campgrounds along this route, and they'll pop up as places you can stay.
That's amazing. That's really awesome. I'm going to have to try that in other countries also, I feel like, because sometimes it's tricky, like looking just on Google with the language barrier. And Google's just so much better. So I'm going to try that.
So if you type in, it's got little more icon, and you can type in what you're looking for, and then it'll just specifically show you that.
Cool. That's awesome.
Okay.
Wow.
If you are looking to hit your protein goals, balance your blood sugar levels, and energize your day, I have just the recipes for you. I have compiled the top high-protein snack recipes from my food blog into a mini e-cookbook. They're easy to make with whole food ingredients. Many of the recipes include nuts, hemp hearts, or eggs as the main source of protein. To get this free ebook, go to besidethemountain.com/protein-ebook or check out the show notes below.
I know that you make bucket lists and you dream big and you get that stuff done. And I think your Tofino trip was one of those trips. And so, yeah, tell us more about that. Do you kind of dream throughout the whole year? Is there things that you do every summer or every season?
Definitely every season I try and plan one big road trip. I try and spread it out wherever we want to go. Usually I'll have like a place in mind where is the final destination. So this past year it was Tofino. That was the big end goal. And then from there, the kids don't want to be in the car for, 25 hours at a time. And I actually cheated this year because we flew to Victoria and then drove to Tofino because it was my first year doing it by myself. And I just was overwhelmed at the idea of 25 hours in the car.
Yeah.
So we cheated a little bit and we flew into Victoria this year and then we road tripped our way along the island. But certainly I will have a place in mind where is going to be the final destination. And so I will plan a trip around that final destination. And I do that once a year in the summer and then try and do something in the winter. But it's a little trickier to drive in the winter here because the roads get bad, washed out, snowed out. And so I try and stay a little bit closer to home in the winter. Just, you don't want to get stuck in Rogers Pass for 5 days when, you know, you got to work or something like that. It's just stressful. So
has that happened to you?
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, certainly I like to plan well in advance, and that goes into like, it fills up. 10 years ago when I started doing this, you could get a campsite. It might not be your top pick of a campsite, but you could get a site in most places. It's not like that anymore. If you're not booking early, you're probably not going to stay in the campground you want to, or you're going to have some, you know. And the reason I learned this was because we went to Montana one year to go to Idaho to do like a couple of the states. So Saskatchewan is actually only like 6 hours. Where I live is only about 6-7 hours to the US border. And then you're basically in Montana, Glacier National Park. And so we were going like Glacier National Park to some other place to Coeur was the final destination that year because we were meeting a bunch of our friends to go to Coeur d'Alene. And so there was 2 days in between and it was like July 1st and 2nd. And I don't know why I did not think of July 4th being a national holiday in the United States, but we pulled up to this place somewhere in Montana and we could not find a campsite. Like there was no campsites available. There wasn't a single, we got laughed at. Like we pulled into one campground and we were like, hey, we're just wondering if there was like a place for us to park our trailer for the night. And the people were like, no.
Oh dear.
And we were like, oh my God. And we had Abby in the back. I was like 30 weeks pregnant. We had our 2-year-old in the back, our dog, like it was 100 degrees outside and we had nowhere to stay. Yeah, I never did that again after that. I plan in advance now. That was a tough lesson to learn. I think we spent the night in a Walmart parking lot or something like that, which was fine. Like it wasn't the end of the world, but it wasn't the lakefront, beautiful campsite that I had pictured in my mind because we were in lake country in the States. Like it wasn't, we were in Walmart.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that never happened again after that. I learned my lesson. And so even if it, you know, a lot of places are like what, $30. And if you find something better, $30 I find is not a bad amount to lose. So if for some reason there's like a first come first serve spot and we end up finding it and that's just perfect and we can not go to the $30 site, then I'll eat the $30 and stay at the better site if that's what it comes to. But I always have somewhere for us to sleep every single night. So I got to plan in advance.
Yes. Especially when you have a trailer and it's totally like
trailer kids, like it's just, they don't want to be driving around for 3 additional hours looking for somewhere to sleep. Like it was a good life lesson. We actually blew a tire out in our RV on that trip. And so we're homeless, nowhere to park, and these kids pulled up beside us and I was super pregnant and these kids pulled up beside us and they're waving their hands and we look and they're like, your tire is smoking. And we had a 2-axle trailer, so it wasn't like we couldn't tell that it had burst, but it was like smoking out the side. And oh my God, it was just like the biggest disaster that we've had on an adventure ever. And so now I book it. I always book something, even if it's something I cancel later, I will have something on our way to work.
How far in advance are you finding that these campsites fill up?
It really depends. Like Tofino, somewhere like Tofino, they opened up months ago already for 2025 reservations. Most places there will be full by now.
Yeah.
National parks, they give you dates every year. They come out with their dates that they're going to have their opening days or whatever. Provincial parks are very similar. Saskatchewan's a little unique in that regard because the provincial parks will do dates like the national parks. So you get like, say, April 5th will be these 5 parks and that's how you book. Alberta and BC do things on a rolling window, which I like a little bit better because then throughout the year, you can just always book as long as you're 90 days in advance. You can get online and you can book your site. Private campgrounds, really, it just depends on the owners of that campground. I know, like I said, Tofino, a lot of those places will be booked up already because they opened, September 1st for the 2025 season. And other private campgrounds will start on like February 1st or January 30th or something. They'll all have their own little date that they that they'll say. Yeah.
Awesome. Are you going to a lot of repeat campsites that you love, or how do you find new ones that you want to go to?
Sometimes I'll repeat campsites just if I like Tofino. We always stay at Surf Grove. Great spot right on the water on Cox Beach. And that's a good learner beach. So that's kind of where you want to be, is somewhere where, you know, the waves aren't going to be massive and your kids can actually enjoy. Also, they have like laundry services and things like that at the campground that are just nice to have when you're in the salt water, pouring rain, usually every day. Other places, I'll use that Google. Again, I'll go into Google, Saskatoon to Tofino, look up campgrounds along this route, and I'll find it. Like usually with the kids, I like to do our first stretch always from Saskatoon to Calgary is our long stretch. And then we always break in Calgary because that's like 7 hours in the car. So that's our long stretch always on those road trips, because you just got to get that over with. Like I don't want to go and stop and camp somewhere in Saskatchewan when we're going to Alberta. So that one, we'll do one big long stretch at the beginning, and then I'll find places. I'll look within like 250 kilometers-ish, depending on, I want to be in the car for like 2.5, 3 hours tops on our move days when we're moving. So also like to have, sometimes it doesn't work out, but I like to have 2 nights minimum stay at each spot so that we actually have time to unpack, time to rest, time to have some adventure, time to actually have some fun. But that's how I find those places. I'll make sure that I know what's within the window that I want to drive, and then I'll look along that route. So if, say I'm going like Saskatoon to Calgary, I know I'm doing that all in one. But then if I want to go, say like Calgary to, let's say like Golden, for example, I'll look up Saskatoon or Calgary to Golden, and then I'll just look in that one little specific area. Yeah. And also when we're going places and we're traveling around, I'll always be taking mental notes or actual physical notes in a little notebook to be like, hey, that would have been a cool place to stay. Or, hey, there's a campground there that's actually not registered on Google, but it is amazing. And so we should stop there sometimes. So I'll always kind of have places so that next year when we're on our way, I'll be like, all right, there was that one place outside of Jasper that looked like an unreal spot to stay, but it's not, you can't find it on Google, and it's not on any other like app or anything like that. It's just a little hidden treasure.
Do you have a favorite campsite?
It's a tough one. I actually don't know that I do. It really depends on where we're at, to be honest. There's a few that I absolutely love, but not really like a favorite one. Like I have multiple in many provinces that I absolutely love and would go back to without question.
Are your girls involved with picking where you're going to go or how the trip is going to look?
Yeah, for sure. Now that they're older and they actually want to have an opinion, I certainly take their wants into account. Like, for example, next summer, Abby really wants to do the mountain coaster in Golden, that Sky Bridge, I think it's called, the Sky Bridge Park. And they started out as just a suspension bridge. Now they have zip lines and a mountain coaster and a big giant swing where you dive off the cliff. I don't see myself doing that personally, but she really wants to do the coaster. So at some point next summer, we're going to make an effort to make sure that that's along our route somewhere so that we can spend a day at that park. Yeah, just obviously they're not the ones driving, so it can be a little tricky, but even if we're driving, it just makes everybody happier. You know, if you can make everybody happier by stopping for an hour somewhere, what is your hour worth? Like, you're going to listen to your kids cry for an hour in the car that they're tired or done or they hate it or whatever, or you're going to stop, you're going to tack an hour onto the end of your day, and it is what it is. And so if they want to stop and they're done driving, we'll stop. Like, it does not matter to me where. Last year we went and spent 2.5 hours in Drumheller because they saw that there was a dinosaur there that you can climb to the top of, which you can, and it's really, really cool. But there's also a water park out there for kids to play in. And so it was a hot day. They got to see the dinosaur, climb to the top, play in the water. We got home 2 hours later. Who cares? Like, at the end of the day, they were happy. It gave everybody the oomph that we needed to get the rest of that drive done. And I'd rather stop anytime. Like, I feel like I'm never tied to on the days where we're traveling, I'm not tied to a specific time we need to be there at. Obviously, if we're at a campground where they're like, you need to be here by 10 p.m. or we're locking the gates, that's a different story. Those times are late enough in the day. Like, if we check out at campgrounds, it's typically 11 a.m. So you've got from 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. to drive 200 kilometers. If they want to stop, we're stopping.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, you got it. It's great to have them involved. It brings them so much joy too when they're involved in the purpose and then they get to do that thing that they were really looking forward to. It brings it all together.
It really does. And it makes everybody have fun. Like that's the whole point. You're not doing it. It is a little bit self-serving because it's something I want to go do. But at the end of the day, it's them. I want them to have fun. I want to create memories and experiences, and I want to do things with them that they're going to remember when they're older and they have kids of their own, to be like, okay, well, my mom did this with me, because I know my mom did. Like my mom was somebody who, my dad worked full time in the city, and we were up in Waskesiu all summer, every summer. And my mom learned how to drive the boat and pull us on skis and tubes and whatever way before my dad knew how to even turn on the boat. Like, yeah, my mom was the one pulling up the trailer and parking it. And then it was me and my mom who would move it when we had to every 6 weeks. It's just one of those things that I remember thinking when I had kids, like, okay, well, I remember my mom pulling a trailer with our Astro van. And so I know for sure that I'll be able to get it done as well, because if she could do it, then so could I. And that's kind of where that's my goal. I just want them to feel like they've got the skill set and they're comfortable enough to go do it with their friends or do it on their own or do it with their kids, or I just want them to have fun.
That's a beautiful thing to pass down to them, It's really beautiful. Do you ever make a bucket list, have a dream, and then maybe you weren't able to complete it? Maybe something came up with the kids or the road trip went sideways. And how do you kind of deal with that?
Better luck next time.
Yeah.
I just keep it on the list and, admit defeat. And like it is what it is. Kids get sick. They get the flu. They get a fever out of absolutely thin air. And it sucks, but we'll just have to try it again next time. We went to Hawaii once when Abby was 6 months old. We got there and she was on death's door. She had pneumonia. She had an ear infection. She was okay when we left and we landed, and she was in a dire condition. So it just happened on the plane. It just progressed. We couldn't go home even because she was so sick. We couldn't even get back on a plane. So we just ended up spending our time sitting in the condo, enjoying Hawaii from our couch. It was too bad, it was unfortunate, but we went back again when she was 2 and we ticked off all the things that we wanted to tick off the first time. It just is what it is. You're not always, like I said, you got to get comfortable with failure when you've got kids and you're trying to go on adventures with them. And it's just not going to work every single time. That's really the only time I can think of where it was like really, really bad, because it was kind of a scary situation where we had to go to urgent care. She had to buy a nebulizer for her. That was a really bad trip, but that was the only one that was really awful, where we couldn't even turn around. We just had to sit there and wait it out until she was done. And then, I don't think there's ever been any other instances where we've had to actually cancel. Certainly instances where the kids have been hating it, miserable, don't want to be there, and we just call it a day.
Yeah, but exactly what you said, though, like that is part of having kids, and we just have to be flexible and be like, this is the pace we're going, and this is what we are choosing to do because we're a family, and it just looks different that way. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, there's no powering through. When a kid is done, they're done. So there's no rallying when there's kids involved. It's like, and I don't want them to either. Like, I want them to have fun. I don't want them to feel like, oh, mom forced us out on another adventure and it was brutal. Like I want them to think, okay, well, mom's okay with not going to. So I'm okay to tell her if I'm hating it or if I'm uncomfortable or something like that. I don't want them to ever feel like they can't tell me the truth about how they're feeling. I'd much rather tell me that they hate it, they're uncomfortable, whatever that ends up being, and then we can try something different. Even sometimes we'll try and go on a hike or something and they're like, oh, this is really not what I want to do today. Like, I'm really, really not into it today. And so we just go do something else, and we'll go sit by the lake if that's what they want to do. We'll go build sandcastles for an hour. We'll blow up the paddle board and do that instead. And if that makes them happy, then that's what we'll do that day, and we'll try the hike another time.
That's so good. It's a skill. It doesn't come natural to all of us, right? Like that is something that we're developing as parents, is figuring it out.
100%. And I had to develop it. Like I've been 10 years trying to develop it. And there still are times where I'm like, oh my God, I failed this time pretty bad. But again, comfortable with failure. It's okay. It does not matter. It doesn't define my kids. It doesn't define me if we miss out on something. And it is what it is. We'll try again and no hit to anybody, no hit to my ego, because at least we tried.
Totally. Exactly right. What's on your bucket list for this summer?
Oh, we have a lot on our bucket list this summer. There is a company that does whitewater rafting with 5-year-olds.
Oh.
And so that's probably number one on my bucket list. I really want to take it. It's like whitewater rafting, right? Like it's, you're not going on class 4 rapids with your toddler or anything like that, but it does look really cool. And so for Gracie's 5th birthday, that's what we're going to do for her birthday. And that's when I'll tie in that golden mountain coaster. That'll be part of the road trip that we do this summer because they're kind of close together, those two. So we'll be doing that. And then a big goal for me this summer is to get a new vehicle that I can pull my trailer with, because right now I have a minivan, which I absolutely adore, but it cannot tow my trailer. And so I would like to get an SUV that has a good towing capacity and then I can pull my trailer, but I also want to get a rooftop tent on the SUV. And so that's kind of like top priority for me this summer, is to get a rooftop tent so that when we don't want to pull the trailer, we want to go do something a little bit out there. Like, I don't think I'd pull my trailer through BC quite yet. I'm not quite comfortable. I like the flatland, Saskatchewan, A with no curves or turns or mountains is going to be where I'm comfortable for a year or two until I get more comfortable with the trailer. But certainly the rooftop tent while we're going through BC would be nice, because then I can I like doing glamping and unique stays and stuff like that too. So if we can tent for a couple of nights and then take a break and glamp for a couple of nights and then tent for a couple of nights, things like that, then I think it would be, I think it'd be better for everybody and we can kind of do it that way. I think the kids are pumped about the idea of climbing onto the roof of the car too. For some reason, that is just, even for me, I'm like, that's going to be so cool. Big bucket list for me this year. I also thinking about hosting like a mom and kid backpacking trip this summer to a little provincial park that's up north in Saskatchewan. Super duper easy trail. Campsites are relatively close to the trailhead. Like, the first one is 200 meters from the parking lot. And so I think it'd be a great way to get some moms out with their kids to kind of do that kind of adventure, but without really high stakes. You know, like, you're not going to be 30K into the backcountry and your kid gets sick. Like, we're going to be 1 kilometer into the backcountry with the option to leave if everyone's miserable. So yeah, that's a big one for me too. Not sure if that's something that I'll continue to do, but I think it'd be fun to try it for a year.
I love that. That's a beautiful goal. That is so many fun things. Wow.
Yeah, I love summer. I really wait all year for summer. Like, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, but it's just so cold. And all my kids play hockey right now, so we're constantly at the rink. And it does get a little monotonous around this time of year when it's freezing cold and I feel like I haven't gone anywhere and I haven't done anything. I'm just working all day, every day, and it gets boring, you know? I like to mix it up a little. So in the summer, it's really easy to do that. In the winter, it's a little trickier because schedules are a lot busier in the winter here.
And I think that's what helps us dream, you know, and make those bucket lists. I think
yeah, for sure. Any lull in my day, I'm on Google, like, where should I go this summer? Is there like a neat lake somewhere that I could check out? Or I'm always looking at stuff.
Yes. Any words of wisdom on how to create a bucket list or
no.
Dream board?
Just like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like, what do you, it's everybody's going to be different. Someone's going to say mountain coaster. No, that's not for me. But maybe like big fish, I would love to catch one. It really just depends on what you want to do.
Yeah.
The kids will always send you a hint or two throughout the year, like, oh, I'd like to try this, or maybe this would be really cool or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. Everybody's going to be different in that respect, because bucket lists are before you kick the bucket. So what do you want to do?
Totally. Yes. What is that interest? Where are your kids at? And how can we all bring that together? Exactly. Love it. As we close out, would you share some words of encouragement to moms who want to explore more?
Just start small. Start small where the risk is really low. You know, go somewhere close to home, where if your kid all of a sudden blows out their diaper or starts freaking out, having a tantrum, and you are panicked and you don't want to be there anymore, go home. Don't force it, and start small, and you will get more comfortable. And then as you get more comfortable, you can move farther away from home. So that's how I did it, and it worked for me.
I love that. Thank you so much, Holly, for sharing. Could you please share about your social media or just where we can connect with you further? And even if there's people in Saskatchewan that maybe want to come on that trip with you or even beyond?
Yeah, for sure. So my Instagram handle is Burgess Adventures, and I do have a TikTok, but I don't post on there very regularly. I feel like I'm too old for TikTok. That's probably just me, but yeah, Burgess Adventures on Instagram, and I post all sorts of camping and glamping and cool stays and road trip itineraries and tips and tricks. And I love doing POVs. Then in the POV, if you read the POV and then you read the caption, there's usually some tips or something in there as well about where to go or what to do or something like that. There's always little Easter eggs hidden in the POVs or the captions that if you actually read them, they can be quite useful.
I love that. Thank you so much for chatting with us today, Holly. And I'm excited about planning our next road trip. We're going soon. So
Good.
look forward to that.
Holly got me so excited about road tripping, exploring this summer. I cannot wait. If you are feeling the same, come on over to the Facebook group. Let us know where you're planning, what trips you're thinking about. I really want to hear about them. And like always, the places that she's mentioned, I've left in the show notes so that we can all look those up and check those out if we want to go to those places. If you enjoyed this show today, would you send it to a friend? Would you send this podcast to someone who also loves to go outside with their kids? As this is a growing community, I want more people to know that this is a thing, that this podcast exists. So thank you for listening in today, and I hope you have a beautiful adventure wherever that is today.